Hey, my name is Brian Consuegra, and this is the Install and Maintenance Guide video for the Robotics Academy website project. By the end of this video, you should be able to have the website you're seeing here running locally on your computer. Let's start by setting up the operating system on which we'll set up our development environment in. To run the Robotics Academy website project, you'll need some form of Linux operating system. We recommend using the Windows subsystem for Linux, which would require both a Windows 10 operating system and some Linux distro, but you can use any Linux distribution you want on a virtual machine or a partition drive or whatever. Just keep in mind that you may run into some bugs or errors that we don't cover in this guide, so proceed at your own risk. Now, back to the Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL. WSL allows any Linux distro, such as Ubuntu, to be run on top of a pre-existing Windows installation. Before we can get started setting up WSL, however, we need to enable the Windows Subsystem for Linux optional feature. To do that, all we have to do is open up PowerShell as an administrator, and run the following line. Enable Windows optional, all that. Once you run the command and wait a bit for it to load, you'll be asked to restart your computer. Just hit enter to restart your computer and let Windows do its thing. Once your computer finishes restarting, open up the Microsoft Store and search for Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. There are multiple versions of Ubuntu on the Microsoft Store, but this is the version that we've tested with, so we've taken into account some of the errors that you may find. You can download Ubuntu 20.04 or the normal Ubuntu latest release or any other Linux distro to work with WSL. However, again, keep in mind that there may be bugs or errors that you encounter that are not taken into account in this guide. Anyways, once you find Ubuntu 18.04, download and wait for the download to finish before continuing. Once the download finishes, open up Ubuntu and wait for the installation process to finish. When prompted, make sure to create a Unix username and password, and try not to forget your password because you'll be using it a lot. Also note that if for any reason you don't have access to a Windows 10 PC, these same steps, or all the steps in this tutorial, can be recreated using the Windows 10 virtual machines provided to you by Professor Sajjati. Next, run the following commands: sudo apt-get update and sudo apt-get upgrade. Make sure to put the 2 ampersands in between those two commands that they both run. Once those two commands finish running, run this command next. As you can see, it's very long. If you don't feel like typing it all out, you can copy paste all the commands we're running from the install guide document. If you get any errors involving PHP 7.2-DOM, mostly involving not being able to find PHP 7.2-DOM, then you can run the following two commands to fix that error. First, this one, sudo apt add repository, all that. Then run sudo apt-get update. I know I typed upgrade there, please ignore that, it's update. Once you run those 2 lines, then you can run again the long sudo apt-get install with all those PHP packages. However, since we didn't get that error, I won't be running that again. Next, we'll need to install 2 additional packages. The first one being the software properties common package, and the second package being this assortment of packages starting with network manager. Next, we're going to be installing Composer. To start, we need to make sure that we're in the home directory. You can set your working directory to the home directory by typing cd tilde. Next, run the following curl command. Then run the file you just downloaded with the curl command by typing this. All the commands we're pasting here can be copy-pasted from the install guide document. Finally, we run sudo apt install composer to install Composer. Once Composer finishes installing, run sudo nano.composer/composer.json. Once that file opens, type in or copy-paste the following lines into the document. Press Ctrl and X at the same time, then Y, then Enter to save and exit Nano. After that, we need to change the permissions for Composer using this chown line. Not really sure how you pronounce that. Next, we'll run Composer global update. If you encounter an error saying your requirements could not be resolved to an installable set of packages, add the ignore platform recs tag at the end of your Composer command. So for example, instead of just running Composer global update, you'd run Composer global update --ignore platform recs, REQS. Once Composer finishes updating, run sudo nano --bashrc and paste the following line to the bottom of the document. Then save and exit nano. Now type in sudo nano ~/.profile to open the profile file and add the following line to the bottom of the file, like before. Finally, we'll once again need to change the permissions for Composer, running a different chown command. Once we finish, we can test if Composer has been successfully installed by running the command Composer. If we installed correctly, the output of the Composer command should look like this. Next, we'll need to install MySQL. MySQL can either be installed on the Windows operating system or on the Linux operating system inside of WSL. For the purposes of this instruction guide, we will be installing on the WSL side. Start by typing sudo apt-get install MySQL server to install MySQL server. To test your installation of MySQL, you can run the sudo service MySQL start command to start out MySQL. We noticed that on Ubuntu 18.04 LTS, this error actually pops up quite a lot, unfortunately. So in order to fix it, start by running the following sudo nano command to open this WSL integration shell script. Then paste the following text at the very top of the document. If MySQL is running correctly, then when you run the sudo service MySQL start command, you should see an OK appear at the right-hand side. Once that's taken care of, we're going to log in to MySQL by typing sudo mysql-u root, log into the root user for MySQL, and we're going to be recreating the root user. Type or paste the following commands into MySQL. After typing all those commands, type in exit to exit MySQL and return to your Linux terminal. We recommend downloading and using MySQL Workbench for easy access to the site's databases. To start, go to the downloads page for MySQL Workbench, link in the description. And in the other download section, download the Windows MSI installer for 64-bit systems. Once the download finishes, open up the MySQL Workbench installer and follow its instructions. For the purposes of this project, you can just leave all the installation settings to their default values. Once installation is complete, launch MySQL Workbench and click on the plus icon to add a new connection. Name the connection WSL MySQL and make sure that the host name is 127.0.0.1, the port number is 3306, the username is root, and the password is blank. Before confirming all those values, hit test connection to test if the MySQL connection is working. If you get this message, then congrats, your MySQL connection works. Hit OK on the Setup New Connection window. Then, open up the WSL MySQL connection by double-clicking on it. On the Schemas section on the left part of the screen, right-click and select Create Schema. Name the schema Laravel, lowercase. Then select Apply, Apply, and finally Finish. And now you have a local instance of the database the Robotics Academy website is using. This next step is optional. However, I do recommend doing it since it is very, very helpful in the long run. We're going to be creating a shell script that will automate the startup of MySQL. Let's start by making sure that we're in the home directory. Again, if you're not in the home directory, cd tilde. Create a new file in the home directory by using nano start-services.sh and copy paste the following into the text document, or type it if you want. Control X, then Y, then enter to save and exit. Next, we'll need to change the permissions for the new shell script we just created using chmod 755 /startservices.ch. Finally, we'll need to open the bashrc file, nano /bashrc, and add this line to the very bottom of the file, sudo /startservices.sh. Save and exit. Now every time you open up a new instance of the Ubuntu terminal, well, first off, now you have to input your password. That's why I warned you to remember this, because you'll be needing it every time you open up. But as you can see, you get these two messages on top. MySQL is running and FPM is running. This script will automatically open up MySQL and PHP FPM for you. Now we're going to be installing Laravel, the framework used to develop this site. We're going to start by cloning the following repository. Again, copy paste from the installation doc. Once that download finishes, change directories into the new Robotics Academy folder. Inside of that folder, run composer install. Once Composer finishes, you'll see that there's a file called .env.example. We're going to run this copy command to rename that into just .env. And then we're going to open that file using nano.env. Once we have that open, go to the DB section and make sure that the following values are correct. DB connection equals MySQL. Ignore me trying to change that. DB host equals 127.0.0.1. DB port equals 3306. DB database equals Laravel. DB username is equal to root. And DB password is blank. Once you've verified those fields, save and exit from the nano editor. Next, run php artisan key : generate to generate keys for Laravel to run. Now you can run php artisan serve to host a website from your Linux terminal and be able to access it from any web browser on the Windows side of your computer. Upon successfully running php artisan serve, it'll return 127.0.0.1 :8000. Copy paste that into your browser and run. Once it finishes loading, you'll be able to see the website. Just note that the user accounts and the Robotics form currently don't work yet. We'll be addressing those two later on in this guide, but for now, don't be surprised if you get any errors accessing those. This next part is also optional. However, we strongly recommend using Visual Studio Code for development on this project. It just makes accessing all the files just so much easier than using Nano. Anyways, once you're on the Visual Studio Downloads page, again, link in the description, click on the Windows installer, just that big button, and wait for the download to finish. Open up the installer once it's finished downloading and follow the installer's instructions. You don't need to put any fancy settings. Default installation settings are fine. As you can see, I've already set up a WSL connection between VS Code and Ubuntu. That wasn't my intention. I wanted to show you guys. However, I've left a link in the video description for Microsoft's official guide on connecting VS Code to WSL. I've also left some instructions on the install guide document. As you can see, I can access all the files within the Robotics Academy directory. And if you notice on the bottom, there's actually a Ubuntu terminal running. The same old sudo password for the MySQL autoscript and everything. So with VS Code, you don't even need to run the Ubuntu terminal by itself anymore. You can just launch VS Code and run terminals on the bottom here. I can even run PHP artisan serve from these terminals. I can even split terminals to create 2 or 3 side-by-side terminals or more. So for example, on the left terminal I can run PHP artisan, and on the right I can run git push or any git commands. Speaking of Git, I'd like to spend a little time talking about the different branches of the Robotics Academy repository. So if you run git branch, you can see that currently you're on the master branch, and it's also the only branch stored locally on your computer. The master branch contains all the files and data for the version of the Robotics Academy site that is currently live, that you can access by the URL roboticsacademy.fiu.edu. However, if you want to see all the code and the files for the development build of the Robotics Academy website, the one that isn't live and that contains all the work done on the site so far, you'll want to access the dev branch of the Robotics Academy repository. To do that, just type the command git checkout dev. You might notice that the display changed a little there, and that's because the files that I had opened changed from the versions of them stored on the master branch to the versions of them stored on the dev branch. And now if we run git branch, we can see that we are on the dev branch. The dev branch has been stored locally on our computer along with our master branch. You'll want to make it a habit of running git pull whenever you check out a new branch or just need any new information from, or pulling any of the latest information or data from that branch. However, because we just cloned this repo not too long ago, we're already up to date. Like you saw earlier, git branch displays not only what branch you're currently on, but all the branches that you have installed locally. However, if you want to see all the branches on the repo, you can run git branch -a, and all those branches unread are branches that only exist remotely. If you run git checkout on any of those, they will be installed locally onto your computer. Press enter to scroll down this list, and when you're done, press Q to exit. In this final section of the install guide, we'll be going over how to install Chatter, the package used to run the website's Roboticist forum. First, run composer update again to make sure that the forum package is installed. Next, run the following line to publish the vendor assets files. Once that finishes, run composer dump autoload to reload the application. Now run php artisan migrate to import both the forums and the site's tables into the MySQL database. Now we're going to be running a few commands in order to seed the tables with some dummy data. First, run php artisan migrate --seed. I don't have any footage of this line running, but trust me that it's there. Then run php artisan db:/seed --class equals course seeder. The last two seeding commands actually fill the table with user info, so now the user account sections of the site work. Finally, and this last step is optional, but it does make the forum look nice the first time you run it, we're going to seed some dummy data into the forum using php artisan db:/seed --class equals chatter table seeder. Finally, we'll need to replace some of the chatter files inside of the vendor folder with some newer versions of those files that actually work. Start by going into the forum replace files from the root directory of the Robotics Academy repo folder. You'll see 4 files inside: chatter before new discussion, chatter discussion controller, chatter before new response, and chatter post controller. For each of the 4 files inside the forum replace files folder, copy them and paste them into the vendor dev dojo chatter source directory. Chatter before new discussion and chatter before new response should go in the events folder, while chatter discussion controller and chatter post controller should go in the controllers folder. Once you have those files pasted, delete the original files, as you might have noticed that the files you just pasted in have the word copy appended to their titles. Delete the originals that don't say copy, and once all those have been deleted, rename the new files that you pasted in, removing the copy word, as well as the space added in between. And with that, you're done. You've completed the installation process for the Robotics Academy project. Note that pages like the use case showroom, employment matchmaking, and the user dashboard also might not work, but for a different reason. All these pages rely on data pulled from Elasticsearch from FIU servers on FIU's network. For security reasons, only systems within FIU's network can access those servers. That means that you'll either have to access those pages from an FIU virtual machine, or you'll need to be logged into the FIU VPN. There will be more information on that in the link below, as well as in the install guide document.